do sub 2-minute Uber Trists, sub 4-minute declones, blisteringly fast maps, and a Rathma killer all in one character sound good to you? Then stick around. My name is redstagg. In today's video I will be bringing you my Sentinel Assassin guide. She can be built super tanky, extremely hardcore friendly, deal loads of damage, the sheet lies to you, and offers an amazing leveling progression experience. She really is the master of all trades. So let's jump in. Now, before we get into the details, there are so many intriguing mechanics of the Blade Sentinel skill that, to be honest, to cover it all, I would need a separate video. However, for the purpose of this guide, I will give you the most important mechanics that you need to know for your Blade Sentinel Assassin. Number 1, enhanced damage from your gear not only adds to your weapon damage, but also adds to your tooltip damage on Blade Sentinel, and does not show up on your sheet, so your sheet damage lies. At high skill levels for Blade Sentinel, your sheet damage is usually roughly less than half of your actual damage output. At the end of this video, I will provide you a link to a calculator so you can calculate your true damage output, because I'm a geek like that. The Sentinel skill, or the Sentinel damage, procs every 5 frames. What this means with the 25 FPS game engine in Diablo 2 is it actually deals damage 5 times a second, providing the Sentinel is still in contact with the monster. Number 3, Sentinel skills do use attack rating. Again, your sheet is lying to you. To find out the chance to hit for your Sentinel, have a look at your normal attack rating, and that is the attack rating that applies to Sentinel. This is super important because if you find that you have high damage but for some reason you're not killing things, it's probably because you don't have the attack rating to support it. But we'll come to that in the gearing choices. Sentinel doesn't benefit from a huge range of, on-hit modifiers such as life or mana steal. Slain monsters rest in peace doesn't work with Sentinel. However, it is worth mentioning at this stage that reducing monsters' defense per hit does work with Sentinel. I will also provide a link at the bottom of this video to the Amazon Basin wiki, so you can see all of what applies and what doesn't apply, but those are the main ones that you need to know. And the 5th point is physical trap skills such as Sentinel and Fury benefit from Pierce, like physical Pierce, at half effectiveness. This means that Soul Drainers only provide a 2.5% physical Pierce. Now, with the boring but essential mechanics a bit better understood, let's quickly jump into the skills and stats. With stats, my personal preference is enough strength and dexterity for your gear, and then dumping the rest into vitality. Of course, you could opt for more dexterity to improve your block chance, but also to improve your attack rating. However, pumping your dexterity for this reason will take off a lot of your vitality and a lot of your life, which is much more important for the end game content such as Declone and Rathma. So I would just recommend to go enough strength and dex and then pump the rest into vitality. Quite unsurprisingly, the skills are fairly straightforward. You max Blade Fury, Blade Shield, and Blade Sentinel with the 3 blade skills. You of course max Claw and Dagger Mastery, not just for the damage, but mostly for the attack rating. And then it leaves you with some points to do as you please. You maybe want to go Venom for more damage. My personal preference is maxing out Fade for, PDR, res, and I personally run Curse Immunity. And also I do recommend a 1 point in Cloak of Shadows to help you out if you need a cooldown period and things get a little bit spicy. Now, there are so many gearing options to choose from, whether you want to go like loads of damage or whether you're more interested in getting a bit of damage reduction and max res. However, one fundamental thing that you should remember is you should prioritize plus skills over almost everything, and then ED once you have a few core items. For the gear setup, I will show you my choice where I favor high PDR and high max res, but I will also give you the list of the most optimal item here for maximum damage, because who doesn't like to go maximum damage? Now, moving on to my gear. For my weapon, I run Stalker's Cull. Now this one has an ED-IAS slam because we do want to be hitting that 42 IAS breakpoint with these exact claw types for maximum frames per animation for Sentinel. A non-eth version of this claw would be great. A crafted claw with lots of skills to Sentinel and plus assassin skills and high damage would be even better. But for me and my playstyle, I absolutely love these claws. I think they might be the best in the server right now with only 4 ED from Perfect. On top of that, I absolutely love the reduced cooldown on Dragonflight. You'll see why with my playstyle. But other options here are really any claws that have reasonable damage, but most importantly plus skills. This is why generally I wouldn't lean towards using daggers such as Flesh Ripper, because as I said before, plus skills matter more, particularly more than weapon damage, because your weapon damage is getting multiplied by 3/4 before it's even applied. Now you will notice that I'm on 0 durability, but I would like to highlight that Blade Shield, Blade Sentinel and Blade Fury will not break your weapon. Let me repeat that. You can use all blade skills and your weapon will never break. You don't need to put Zods in there. Of course, if you accidentally auto attack, then you're in a bit of trouble, but I've run a whole season without ever breaking a claw, and you definitely can as well. Now moving on to the shield, for sure the best in slot is a Phoenix. It has massive ED, and of course the Redemption is a welcome aura to help your sustainability in maps, but of course it wouldn't be essential. Before I had this, I was running the Orphan set, 3-piece set, shield, gloves, and belt. This gave me 150 ED, as well as additional damage to demons and undead. So it was a great budget alternative until I met with Phoenix. However, I would try and get your hands on this. The ED is massive. The Redemption is super great. It's all around a great choice for this build. Now, moving on to the helmet, I personally am running a 3-socketed Crown of Ages with a PDR slam. Most importantly, I do have 2 IAS ED jewels in there and 1 ED with minus requirement, because of course we want the ED and we need to be hitting that breakpoint. And when I have some item swaps for Rathma, I want to make sure that I have the flexibility to change my gloves and amulet and not rely on the IAS there and still hit the max breakpoint. So just with the helmet and the claw alone, I am sure that I am always at my maximum IAS breakpoint. However, the absolute #1 piece that you could have here would be a Veil of Steel, corrupted for +1 skill, puzzle box for 2 open sockets with ED jewels in it. Of course, massive skills, huge damage boost with that also compared to what I'm running. And of course the ED is nice and the res are nice too. So if you can get your hands on those and you do fancy full damage, do go a 1 skill 2 puzzle box slam veil. You will not regret it. Now going on to budget options, you could be running full Natalias with this build. It is also possible. And going even more budget, really you're just looking for plus skills here. Lower Runeward, Peasant Crown maybe, Shaco if you want some MF, the plus skills, get some sockets there, add some ED jewels, and Bob's your uncle. I'm not sure if that's a saying everywhere in the world, so if that didn't make sense, I do apologise. Maybe he's not your uncle. Now moving on to the armor, I am running a simple Fortitude. Of course, you could run more budget options here like Treachery. You have the plus skills, of course, which is very good. You could even run Lionheart, although Treachery is actually better in this case. And if you wanted optimal damage setup, you of course would then run a Purgatory, Ethereal, go full Ethereal setup, get everything repairing or indestructible. With 1 skill, slam, and 2 open sockets would be the best in slot for damage. But for me, you know, I don't want to go the Purgatory setup. I love the life here, I love the resistances, and overall, fairly easy to get. Now with the belt, I personally run a Verdungo's belt with curse reduction. You'll see actually a few curse reductions items coming up because I do run curse immunity. I just like the quality of life. But if you wanted, again, maximum damage, you could look at Iraq. Otherwise, any sort of belt will do. For my gloves, I do typically run soul drainers, although the pierce is almost negligible. I do really like the minus monsters defense per hit, particularly if I'm doing Uber Trist or Declone. It means that even if my attack rating isn't very high and I've not got a good chance to hit, that will improve as the fight goes on. The kicker to this is that actually life and mana steal does apply to Blade Shield. So you can whiz about maps and kind of steal a little bit of resources from monsters just from Blade Shield and having these gloves. But of course, any alternative here, to be honest, is a pretty open slot and fairly flexible for you to decide. Now for my boots, I am running Gore Riders, the Deadly Strike. This is one of the other sources of Deadly Strike beyond the weapon. Cannot be beaten in terms of flat damage. Of course, if you wanted other mods, you can get them, but Gore Riders are the go-to. Before that, I was running some Shadow Dancers. The plus to disciplines improved the claw and dagger mastery, boosted the damage and attack rating, which was a nice bonus, but I do prefer Gore Riders. Now, moving on to the jewelry, I'm running High Lords. We've got attack speed there, just in case you're not getting it already, but we already have the setup too. But most importantly, we have skills, we have Deadly Strike. Again, here you would want a plus skill slam High Lord. It would be by far the best in slot. But otherwise, you could also run a 2 to assassin skills amulet. It would be completely viable as well. Now for my rings, usually if I'm not mapping, if I'm doing the endgame content, I'm running Dual Nature's Peace. I am just obsessed with the max res, all max res that these rings give you. I also love the added effect of the Oak Sage to improve your survivability a bit more. Of course, one of them needs to have Cannot Be Frozen because you don't have that anywhere else on your gear. And the other option, of course, would be a Wisp Projector there. I also have one in my stash for when I'm mapping. The plus skills, of course, and the Heart of the Wolverine are going to really be big damage boosts for you. The other option you could have is, of course, Bull Catho's ring. However, I would say that plus skill rings are going to be better than BK's ED set ring. So do prioritize plus skills. I personally like the survivability of a Dual Nature's Piece. On weapon swap, of course, a CTA, plus skills, plus survivability, plus damage, all of this greatly valuable for the Sentinel Sin. Now for my charms, of course, we run the Torch and an Annie. But for the skillers, the most important thing is to get trap skillers over max damage charms. They boost your damage so much more than any max damage charm. So you want to be full of skillers if possible, and then supplement with the small charms, things like life, resistances, possibly to add max damage or attack rating if you're struggling. My personal preference is towards life and resistances. Now, moving on to the mercenary is where it gets a little bit more interesting. I am running a Reaper's Toll. The reason, if you remember, physical pierce only applies at half the rate and amplify damage is freaking broken this season. So this by far improves your damage output to monsters compared to Pride or a Fanaticism Act 5 Merc or any mixture of auras you can think of. The amplify damage proc here will outdamage them all significantly. Now, the other notable point is that I do not run a Defiance Merc. I actually run a Blessed Aim Merc, and that is because my dexterity is low. You'll see I don't really have much AR on my gear, and so I need to make up for that. And I just find that I am way faster and more effective when I'm running Blessed Aim to boost my attack rating while maintaining survivability by avoiding having to put points there or swapping out other gearing choices. Of course, if you check your chance to hit and it's above, 85%, you can absolutely run a Defiance Merc or look to running an Act 5 Merc with a Lacerator for amplify damage. Then you have the Great Might Aura to improve your damage further. But for me and my playstyle and what I've found the best and calculated to be the best is amplify damage on your Merc over all aura. And in my case, I really like to have that Blessed Aim for the improved attack rating. Now the rest of the gear is a bit cookie cutter. We've got PDR from Shaft's Top. You could of course have a Templar Might for more damage. Got PDR with a string. We're running Andy's Face Helmet for attack speed and lifesteal. We've got some random Cannot Be Frozen boots. And maybe more interestingly, we're running Lava Gout gloves on him. Again, that enchant proc when it hits improves your attack rating further. Really important to make sure those sentinels hit. Now, the only time we do make weapon swaps is for the Rathma fight, and that's because we want to have maximum poison res to 90, and we want to also have 0 poison length remaining on us, so maximum poison length reduction. In my setup, I swapped to Venom Hand gloves, I swapped to Venom Ward armor, and I also swapped to an amulet that has 2 assassin skills and 75 poison length reduction with some other mods. With these 3 pieces, I'm still curse immune, I am still at the max IAS breakpoint for Sentinel, and I have full poison length reduction, which is really great for the fight. Now, before you go, I do have something for you. My Sentinel calculator will be made publicly available. You'll find it in my Discord under downloads, and there you're able to use a calculator to determine if one item is better than the other, i.e. should I get +1 skill extra or an extra socket for more ED, by just tweaking the input parameters. Also, if you do still want some additional guidance, feel free to write a comment below or contact me in the Discord if you want some tips or help in setting up your Sentinel Sin or with any of the end game content. Now, this was free for you to watch. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give me a thumbs up if you did. Feel free to share it and subscribe if you haven't already. And we will see you in the next video. Redstagg out. GG.